The wine glass felt heavier in my hand than it should have. Maybe it was the way Elena casually dropped her little announcement while scrolling through her phone, not even bothering to look up at me. "Reed wants to get drinks and catch up tomorrow night," she said, her voice carrying that practiced nonchalance she'd perfected over our 8 years of marriage. "You're obviously not invited. It would be weird, you know?" I took a slow sip of the Merlot she'd insisted we buy because it paired well with her salmon. Expensive taste for someone who contributed exactly half of nothing to our household income while I busted my knuckles restoring classic cars 12 hours a day. "Completely understood," I replied, keeping my voice level. Elena finally glanced up from her phone, probably expecting some kind of protest or jealous reaction. When she didn't get one, she shrugged and went back to typing. Her manicured nails clicked against the screen, those same nails I'd been paying for at the salon every 2 weeks. Reed Forsyth, her college boyfriend, the same Reed who dumped her senior year for some sorority princess, leaving Elena crying on my shoulder until I was stupid enough to think I could fix her broken heart permanently. The same Reed who'd slithered back into our social circle 6 months ago when his development company started throwing money around our little New England town like confetti. "What time should I expect you back?" I asked, cutting into my steak with deliberate precision. "Oh, you know how these things go. Could be late. Don't wait up." The casual cruelty of it was almost artistic. 8 years of marriage, and she was telling me not to wait up while she gallivanted around with her ex. The same woman who'd thrown a 3-day tantrum when I'd grabbed beers with my old college roommate without giving her a detailed itinerary. I nodded and continued eating, letting the silence stretch between us like a taut wire. Elena kept glancing at me, clearly puzzled by my lack of reaction. She'd been pushing boundaries for months now, staying out later, being vague about her whereabouts, treating me like an inconvenient roommate rather than her husband. This was just the latest test to see how much I'd tolerate. The answer, as it turned out, was exactly this much and not one bit more. After dinner, Elena disappeared upstairs for what she called her evening routine, a 2-hour production involving 17 different skincare products and enough primping to prepare for a royal wedding. I loaded the dishwasher, wiped down the counters, and made my decision. Our smart home system was something Elena had insisted on when we'd renovated last year. "It's so convenient, Jack. We can control everything from our phones." What she hadn't considered was that I'd been the one to set it up, which meant I had administrative access to everything. I pulled out my laptop and got to work. First, I canceled our weekend getaway to the Berkshires. The boutique hotel was surprisingly accommodating about the cancellation, especially when I explained that my wife had decided to pursue other interests. Full refund, minus a small processing fee. Next, I called the jeweler about the anniversary necklace I'd been making payments on for 3 months. Another understanding merchant who agreed to refund my deposit when I explained that anniversaries had become somewhat irrelevant. The smart home system was next. I changed all the access codes, revoked Elena's administrative privileges, and set up new user restrictions. Her car, which was registered in both our names but insured under my policy, suddenly found itself locked out of the garage door system. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I packed methodically, taking only what was mine: clothes, tools, a few books, my grandfather's watch. Everything fit into 2 duffel bags and a toolbox. 8 years of marriage, and my actual possessions barely filled the trunk of my pickup truck. Ms. Palmer was watering her garden when I loaded my bags. Our 70-something neighbor had the observational skills of a retired detective and the social network of a small-town newspaper editor. "Going somewhere, Jack?" she called over the hedge. "Just a little reorganization, Miss Palmer. Sometimes you have to clear out the clutter to see what's really valuable." She nodded knowingly. Ms. Palmer had been married 3 times and buried 2 husbands. She understood the economics of relationships better than most financial advisors. I drove to my shop and set up a temporary living situation in the office. It wasn't glamorous, but it had a couch, a coffee maker, and most importantly, it was mine. No shared mortgage, no joint accounts, no compromises about paint colors or furniture placement. Around 11:30, my phone buzzed with a text from Elena. "Having such a great time. Reed is exactly the same as college. Don't wait up. XOXO." The emoji-laden message was so transparently designed to provoke jealousy that it was almost insulting. Did she really think I was that predictable? I texted back, "Glad you're enjoying yourself. Take your time." Then I settled in to wait. Elena's car pulled into our driveway at 2:17 a.m. I knew this because the security system I'd installed sent me a notification every time someone approached the property. Another little feature Elena had forgotten about. My phone rang at 2:23 a.m. Jack, the garage door won't open. Did you forget to pay the electric bill or something? No, everything's working fine. You'll need to park in the driveway tonight. What? Why? This is ridiculous. I'm tired and I just want to... Elena, we need to talk when you get inside. Talk about what? Jack, you're being weird. Just open the garage door. Use your key for the front door. I'll meet you in the living room. I hung up and positioned myself in my favorite chair, the one Elena always complained about because it didn't match her carefully curated aesthetic. From here, I could see her perfectly when she walked in. The front door opened at 2:31 a.m. Elena stumbled slightly, not quite intoxicated, but definitely relaxed. Her lipstick was smudged, her hair was mussed, and she had that satisfied glow that comes from feeling desired and appreciated. She stopped short when she saw me sitting there with my bags packed beside the chair. How was it? I asked conversationally. Elena blinked, clearly trying to process the scene. How was what? Your evening, with Reed. You texted that you were having a great time. Oh, yeah, it was really good, actually. She said it with a slight smile, like she was savoring a private joke. Really, really good. I'm glad. Why are you packed? The question seemed to take a moment to register. Elena looked at my bags, then at me, then back at the bags. Because we're done. Effective immediately. Her face went through a fascinating series of expressions. Confusion, disbelief, then something that looked almost like panic before settling into cold fury. Excuse me? I stood up slowly, picking up my keys from the side table. 8 years, Elena. 8 years of marriage. And you just told me about having a really, really good time with your ex-boyfriend at 2:30 in the morning. I think we both know what that means. You're being ridiculous. We just talked. We're old friends. Old friends who stay out until 2 a.m. and come home looking like they've been doing more than talking. Elena's hand flew to her hair, an unconscious gesture that confirmed everything I needed to know. Jack, you're overreacting. Nothing happened. Reed and I just... Elena. My voice was quiet but firm. Stop. Just stop. We both know exactly what happened tonight, and we both know this marriage has been over for months. I'm just making it official. She stared at me, and for a moment, I saw something that might have been genuine emotion flicker across her face. But it passed quickly, replaced by the calculating look I'd been seeing more and more lately. You can't just leave. We have a mortgage, responsibilities. You can't just walk away because you're having some kind of midlife crisis. Watch me. I picked up my bags and headed for the door. Elena followed, her voice rising. This is insane. You're throwing away 8 years over nothing, over drinks with an old friend. I paused at the door and turned back to her. Elena, if it was really nothing, you wouldn't have told me not to wait up. If it was really nothing, you wouldn't have come home at 2:30 looking like you'd been thoroughly entertained. And if it was really nothing, you wouldn't be standing there trying to convince me it was nothing instead of being outraged that I'd even suggest something happened. Her mouth opened and closed without sound. The divorce papers will be filed Monday morning. You can stay in the house until we sort out the details, but I'd suggest you start figuring out your next move. And Elena, you might want to call Reed. Something tells me you're going to need a new place to stay sooner rather than later. I walked out and didn't look back, even when I heard her shouting my name from the doorway. The night air felt cleaner somehow, like I'd been holding my breath for months and could finally exhale properly. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn clarity that makes everything seem possible. I was up at 6, making coffee in my shop's makeshift kitchen and planning my next moves. Elena, I suspected, was probably still asleep, assuming this was all some kind of dramatic gesture that would blow over by Sunday. She was about to learn otherwise. My phone had been buzzing since 7 a.m. with text messages. Elena had apparently decided that social media was her weapon of choice for this particular battle. The first salvo was subtle, a Facebook post about going through changes and discovering who your real friends are during difficult times. The kind of vague, attention-seeking message designed to generate sympathy and curious questions. By 9 a.m., she'd escalated to Instagram stories featuring cryptic quotes about betrayal and strength. My personal favorite was a sunset photo with the caption, "Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you the most, but I'm stronger than I knew." New beginnings, even stronger than ever. Truth wins. The irony was so thick you could spread it on toast. My phone rang. Trevor, my lead mechanic, and the closest thing I had to a best friend. "Boss, what the heck is going on? Maya just called asking if you'd lost your mind." Maya. Elena's work friend and social media accomplice. The two of them together had the strategic planning capabilities of a Pentagon think tank and the discretion of a tabloid newspaper. Elena and I are getting divorced. She decided to rekindle things with her college boyfriend, so I decided to rekindle my self-respect. About time, Trevor said without hesitation. That woman's been treating you like hired help for years. But Maya's saying you just abandoned Elena without warning. Something about a breakdown? I could practically hear Elena's spin machine working overtime. The abandoned wife, the unstable husband, the sudden breakdown that came out of nowhere. It was a good strategy, if it had been true. Trevor, do me a favor. Can you come in today? I want to show you something. Sure, boss. Be there in 20. I spent the next few minutes organizing my evidence. Screenshots of Elena's location data from the past 6 months, showing regular visits to Reed's apartment complex. Credit card statements showing charges at expensive restaurants I'd never been to. Phone records showing lengthy conversations with Reed going back 4 months. I wasn't just angry, I was thorough. Trevor arrived with coffee and donuts, taking in my temporary living situation with the practical acceptance of someone who'd been through his own share of relationship disasters. So, what's the real story? He asked, settling into the folding chair across from my desk. I walked him through everything. The gradual changes in Elena's behavior, the mysterious evening commitments, the casual cruelty of last night's announcement. I showed him the evidence I'd compiled, the timeline I'd constructed. Trevor whistled low. She's been planning this for months. Exactly. And now she's trying to control the narrative, make it look like I'm the unstable one who abandoned her without cause. What are you going to do about it? I smiled, and Trevor actually leaned back a little. He'd seen that expression before, usually right before I solved a particularly challenging restoration problem. I'm going to tell the truth, but I'm going to tell it strategically. My first call was to Victoria Chen, Elena's college roommate and the unofficial social coordinator of our friend group. Victoria had always been polite to me, but I'd sensed she was more Elena's friend than mine. What Elena didn't know was that Victoria had called me 3 months ago with concerns about Elena's behavior. Jack, I just saw Elena's posts. Are you okay? I'm fine, Victoria, but I think you deserve to know what really happened. I gave her the abbreviated version. Elena's announcement about drinks with Reed, her 2 a.m. return, her admission that the evening had been really, really good. I didn't need to spell out the implications. Oh my God, Victoria said quietly. Jack, I'm so sorry. I suspected something was going on, but I hoped I was wrong. There's more. I sent her the screenshots of Elena's location data, the restaurant charges, the phone records. This has been going on for months. Last night wasn't a spontaneous reunion. It was a celebration. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. What do you need from me? Just the truth. When people ask, tell them what really happened. Elena's trying to paint this as an abandoned wife situation, but we both know better. Consider it done. And Jack, I'm really sorry. You deserved better than this. My second call was to my lawyer. Janet Morrison had handled our house purchase and Elena's business contracts. She was sharp, thorough, and had no patience for nonsense. I need to file for divorce, Janet, and I need to do it right. What's the situation? I gave her the facts, clean and simple. Janet listened without comment, occasionally asking for clarification on dates and details. This is pretty straightforward, she said finally. Adultery, abandonment of marital responsibilities, and from what you're telling me, she's been planning this for months. Do you want to pursue alimony? No, I just want out. Clean and simple. She can keep the house if she can afford the mortgage payments. I just want my tools, my truck, and my freedom. I can file the papers Monday morning. But Jack, be prepared. If she's been planning this, she probably has her own legal strategy. Let her bring it. I've got evidence, and I've got the truth. By noon, my phone was buzzing with messages from mutual friends. Elena's social media campaign was generating the intended sympathy and outrage, but Victoria was already doing damage control, quietly sharing the real story with key people in our social circle. The turning point came when Maya called me directly. Jack, what the heck is going on? Elena is devastated. She says you just packed up and left without any explanation. Maya was Elena's closest friend, her workout partner, and her partner in social media drama. If I could get Maya to understand the truth, Elena's narrative would collapse. Maya, I'm going to ask you one question, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Where was Elena last night between 8 p.m. and 2:30 a.m.? She was having drinks with Reed, catching up. Why? And what time did she get home? I don't know, Jack. Why does it matter? They're old friends. She got home at 2:30 in the morning, Maya. She texted me at 11:30 saying she was having such a great time and not to wait up. When I asked her how her evening was, she said it was really, really good. Does that sound like catching up with an old friend to you? Silence on the other end of the line. Maya, I'm going to send you some information. Look at it carefully, and then decide for yourself what really happened here. I sent her the same evidence package I'd shared with Victoria. The location data, the phone records, the timeline, everything that showed Elena's months-long affair with Reed. Maya called back 20 minutes later. Jack, I had no idea. Elena told me they'd just reconnected recently. 4 months ago, Maya. They've been talking for 4 months, meeting for 6 weeks, and last night was apparently when they decided to make it official. I feel sick. She's been lying to everyone. She's been lying to herself too, I think, but that's not my problem anymore. By Saturday evening, the social media narrative had shifted dramatically. Elena's posts were getting fewer likes and more pointed questions. Victoria and Maya were quietly sharing the truth with anyone who asked, and Elena's support system was crumbling in real time. My phone rang at 8 p.m. Elena. What did you do? Her voice was tight with fury. I told the truth. Revolutionary concept, I know. You sent private information to my friends. You violated my privacy. Elena, you forfeited your privacy when you decided to conduct a public social media campaign about our marriage. You wanted everyone to know your version of events, so I made sure they knew the actual events. This is harassment. I could have you arrested. For what? Sharing factual information about my own marriage? Good luck with that. You're destroying my reputation over nothing. I'm not destroying anything, Elena. I'm just not protecting you from the consequences of your choices anymore. She hung up on me. Sunday morning brought a new development. Reed Forsyth himself decided to enter the conversation, sending me a series of text messages that were apparently designed to establish his dominance in this situation. Elena told me what happened. You need to let this go, man. She's moved on. You walked away from a good woman over nothing. That's on you. She's happier now. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I stared at the messages for a long moment, feeling something cold and calculating settle in my chest. Reed thought this was over. He thought he'd won, claimed his prize, and now the defeated husband would slink away quietly. He was about to learn that I wasn't that kind of husband. I screenshot his messages and added them to my evidence file. Then I sent a single text back. Thanks for the confirmation. This will be very helpful in court. Then I blocked his number and started planning phase 2 of my response. Elena wanted a war. Reed thought he was untouchable. They were both about to discover that underestimating Jack Halstead was a very expensive mistake. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp efficiency that made everything feel possible. I was at my shop by 6 a.m., working on a 1967 Mustang restoration while my lawyer filed the divorce papers. There's something therapeutic about rebuilding an engine, taking something broken and making it better than it was originally. Elena's car was in the driveway when I drove past our house at lunchtime. She was probably working from home, strategizing her next move, or crying to her remaining friends. I felt a brief moment of something that might have been sympathy, but it passed quickly. She'd made her choices. Now she got to live with them. My phone buzzed with a text from Trevor. Boss, you need to see Elena's latest Instagram story. The video showed Elena in our kitchen, looking appropriately devastated, talking about betrayal and abandonment, and how she was trying to stay strong during this unexpected crisis. She was good. I had to give her that. The lighting was perfect, her makeup was strategically smudged, and her voice had just the right tremor of brave vulnerability. The comments were a mix of support and pointed questions. Victoria and Maya's damage control was working, but Elena still had allies who believed her version of events. Time to change that equation. Tuesday evening, I made my move. The Riverside Bistro was Elena and Reed's favorite spot, upscale enough to feel sophisticated, but small enough that everyone could see everyone else. Elena had posted earlier about dinner with a friend who actually cares, which was basically a public announcement of their location. I arrived at 7:30, just as they were settling into their usual corner table. Elena saw me first, her face going pale, then flushing with anger. Reed followed her gaze and straightened in his chair like he was preparing for a confrontation. I walked over with a smile that probably looked more predatory than friendly. Elena, Reed, what a pleasant surprise. Reed half stood, his jaw tight. Jack, I think you should leave. Oh, I'm not staying long. I just wanted to congratulate you both on your new relationship. It's so refreshing to see people being honest about what they want. Elena's eyes narrowed. Jack, don't do this. Not here. Do what? Celebrate love? Toast new beginnings? I raised my voice just enough to catch the attention of nearby tables. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet my soon-to-be ex-wife Elena and her new boyfriend Reed. They've been together for months, which makes this a very special occasion. The restaurant had gone quiet. Elena looked mortified, Reed looked furious, and I was just getting started. You know, Reed, I have to thank you. Elena's been so much happier these past few months, and now I know why. There's nothing like the excitement of a secret affair to put a spring in someone's step. That's enough, Reed growled, standing fully now. Oh, I'm just getting warmed up. See, Elena here has been telling everyone that I abandoned her without warning. But the truth is, she's been planning this transition for months. Very organized, very strategic. I actually admire the execution. I pulled out my phone and held up the screenshots of Elena's location data. 4 months of planning, 6 weeks of regular meetings, and last Friday night was apparently the grand finale. Elena came home at 2:30 a.m. and told me she'd had a really, really good time catching up with you, Reed. I'm sure everyone here can read between those lines. Elena was mortified. Reed was seething, and half the restaurant was recording this on their phones. Maya was at the bar with some friends, live streaming the entire thing to her social media followers. Perfect. The beautiful thing about the truth, I continued, is that it's so much simpler than lies. Elena wanted Reed, Reed wanted Elena, and I was just the inconvenient husband standing in the way of true love. So romantic, really. Reed stepped closer, trying to intimidate me with his height and expensive suit. You need to stop this right now. Or what? You'll steal my wife? Too late for that threat, buddy. The crowd was eating this up. Elena looked like she wanted to disappear, and Reed was clearly struggling not to take a swing at me. Time for the grand finale. I picked up my water glass and took a step toward their table, pretending to stumble slightly. The entire glass of ice water went straight onto Reed's lap, soaking his $1,000 suit and causing him to jump back with a yelp. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I said loudly, grabbing napkins and making a show of trying to help. How clumsy of me. Here, let me help you clean up. I dabbed at his jacket with a napkin, spreading the water around and making the situation worse. Reed pushed me away, cursing under his breath. Really, I feel terrible about this, I announced to the restaurant. But accidents happen, right? Sometimes you're just minding your own business, and suddenly everything gets messy through no fault of your own. Kind of like marriage, actually. The crowd laughed. Elena grabbed her purse and fled toward the bathroom. Reed stood there dripping, furious and humiliated. I dropped a 20 on their table. That should cover my water. Enjoy your dinner, you two. And Reed, you might want to change clothes before your next public appearance. First impressions matter. I walked out to spontaneous applause from several tables. Maya's live stream had captured the entire thing, and by Wednesday morning, the video was circulating through every social media platform in town. Elena's narrative of the abandoned wife had been completely destroyed, replaced by the much more entertaining story of the cheating wife and her arrogant boyfriend getting publicly humiliated by the wronged husband. My phone was buzzing constantly with messages of support, requests for interviews, and updates from Victoria about Elena's rapidly shrinking social circle. But the real victory came Wednesday afternoon, when I drove past Reed's apartment complex and saw his precious Tesla in the parking lot. The same Tesla he'd been bragging about for months, the one he'd posted endless photos of on social media. Someone had decorated it beautifully. Cheater was spray-painted across the windshield in bright red letters. The interior reeked of cat food, and there were fish sauce stains on the leather seats that would probably never come out. I had no idea who might have done such a thing, probably just concerned citizens expressing their feelings about adultery and arrogance. Reed's angry voicemails started around 4 p.m. He was convinced I was responsible, threatened to call the police, demanded I pay for the damage. I listened to each message with growing amusement, then saved them all as evidence of harassment. My response was a single text. Sorry to hear about your car troubles. Maybe you should be more careful about where you park, and who you park with. Elena called that evening, her voice shaking with rage. This has to stop, Jack. Reed's car, the restaurant scene, turning my friends against me. This is harassment. Elena, I had dinner at a restaurant where you happened to be. I spilled some water by accident. As for Reed's car, I have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe he has other enemies. Shocking thought, I know. Everyone knows it was you. Everyone knows a lot of things, Elena. They know you've been lying to them for months. They know you've been cheating on your husband. They know Reed's the kind of man who sends threatening text messages to the husband of the woman he's sleeping with. Maybe Reed's car situation is just karma catching up with him. You're destroying my life over nothing. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just not protecting you anymore. There's a difference. She hung up, but I knew this wasn't over. Elena was smart, strategic, and she still had some fight left in her. Reed was arrogant and entitled, used to getting his way through money and intimidation. They were both about to learn that I was just getting started. Thursday morning brought news that Reed's construction company had lost its biggest contract. Apparently, some anonymous person had provided Reed's clients with information about his business practices, his history of cost overruns, and his tendency to cut corners on safety regulations. All public information, of course. Just compiled and presented in a very organized, very professional format. Reed's second Tesla incident happened Friday night. He'd apparently learned his lesson about parking in public, because this time he'd used the underground garage of his apartment complex. Unfortunately, someone had managed to get past security and leave his car sitting on blocks, with all 4 wheels neatly stacked beside it. The note on his windshield read, "Restoration complete. No charge for the service." I was at home that evening, my real home, the shop, when Reed decided to confront me directly. He pounded on the door at 11 p.m., shouting about property damage and harassment and how he was going to have me arrested. I opened the door calmly, holding my phone with the recording app already running. "Reed, what brings you by so late? You know exactly why I'm here. The car, the contract, all of it. This ends now. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but you seem upset. Maybe you should go home and get some rest. Don't play dumb with me. I know it was you. Reed, I restore classic cars for a living. I wouldn't know how to vandalize a Tesla if I wanted to. Have you considered that maybe you've made other enemies? Successful businessmen like yourself often do." His face was red with rage, and for a moment I thought he might actually take a swing at me. Instead, he stepped closer, trying to intimidate me with his size. "Stay away from Elena, stay away from me, and stay away from my property." "Elena's not your property, Reed. She's a grown woman who makes her own choices. As for your actual property, I suggest you invest in better security. Clearly someone out there doesn't like you very much." He stormed off, but not before I'd gotten the entire conversation recorded. Threatening behavior, admission that he considered Elena his property, and enough angry ranting to make him look unhinged if this ever went to court. Saturday morning, I sent the recording to my lawyer with a note. Evidence of harassment and threatening behavior. Elena's latest social media posts showed her and Reed at some upscale resort, apparently trying to escape the drama with a romantic weekend getaway. The photos were carefully staged to show happiness and intimacy, but I could see the strain around Elena's eyes, the forced nature of Reed's smile. Their perfect new relationship was already showing cracks under pressure. I spent the weekend working on the Mustang, planning my next moves, and enjoying the peace of my new life. No more walking on eggshells, no more pretending Elena's behavior was acceptable, no more compromising my self-respect for the sake of keeping the peace. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again, and I was just getting started. The following Monday brought an unexpected visitor to my shop. Elena stood in the doorway at 9 a.m., looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her usually perfect appearance was disheveled, her makeup couldn't quite hide the dark circles under her eyes, and her hands were shaking slightly. Trevor was at his workbench, pretending to focus on an engine rebuild while obviously listening to every word. I'd briefed him on the situation, and he'd agreed to stay close during any interactions with Elena or Reed. Witnesses were becoming increasingly important. "We need to talk," Elena said, her voice tight with barely controlled emotion. "We're talking. What do you need?" She glanced at Trevor, clearly uncomfortable with the audience. "Privately." "Trevor's fine. He's heard everything already. What's on your mind, Elena?" She stepped further into the shop, and I noticed she was recording on her phone. Smart move. She was probably hoping I'd say something threatening or abusive that she could use against me. "This has to stop, Jack. The harassment, the stalking, the vandalism. Reed's talking about getting a restraining order." "Against who? I haven't done anything to Reed except exist in the same town. If that's grounds for a restraining order, he's going to have problems with about 15,000 other people." "Don't play dumb. His car, his business contracts, following us to restaurants. Everyone knows it's you." I leaned against my workbench, keeping my voice calm and reasonable. "Elena, I went to dinner at a public restaurant where you happened to be. I spilled some water by accident. As for Reed's other problems, maybe he should look at his own behavior. Successful men like Reed often make enemies through their business practices. You're destroying my relationship." "Your relationship is destroying itself. I'm just not protecting you from the consequences anymore." Elena's composure cracked slightly. "I made one mistake, Jack. One night of weakness, and you're trying to ruin my entire life." Trevor snorted from his workbench. Elena shot him a furious look. "One mistake?" I kept my voice level, but I could feel the anger building. "Elena, you've been planning this for months. 4 months of phone calls, 6 weeks of secret meetings, and God knows how long you've been emotionally checked out of our marriage. That's not one mistake. That's a systematic betrayal. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Reed and I just reconnected, and things got complicated, but I never meant to hurt you. You never meant to get caught. There's a difference. She was quiet for a moment, and I could see her calculating her next move. Elena was always strategic, always looking for the angle that would get her what she wanted. What do you want, Jack? Money? The house? Just tell me what it will take to end this. I want you to stop lying. I want you to stop playing victim on social media, and I want you to take responsibility for your choices instead of blaming everyone else. And if I do that, you'll leave us alone? I studied her face, seeing the desperation she was trying to hide. Elena was used to being able to manipulate situations, to charm her way out of consequences. This was probably the first time in her adult life that her actions had led to results she couldn't control. Elena, I'm not stalking you or Reed. I'm not vandalizing his property. I'm just living my life and telling the truth when people ask what happened to our marriage. If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should examine why. Reed says you're dangerous, that you're escalating toward violence. Reed doesn't know me at all, but he's about to. The words slipped out before I could stop them, and Elena's eyes widened. She'd gotten what she came for, something that could be interpreted as a threat. What does that mean? It means Reed has been sending me threatening text messages and showing up at my business making demands. It means he seems to think he can intimidate me into disappearing quietly. It means he's about to learn that I don't intimidate easily. Elena looked genuinely frightened now. Jack, please, just let this go. We can work out the divorce quietly, split everything fairly. Reed and I will move away if that's what it takes. Where was this reasonableness 4 months ago, Elena? Where was this concern for my feelings when you were sneaking around behind my back? I'm sorry. I really am. I handled this badly, and I hurt you, and I'm sorry. It was the first genuine apology I'd heard from her, and for a moment, I felt something that might have been the old affection. But it passed quickly, replaced by the clear understanding that Elena was only sorry she'd been caught. Apology noted, but it doesn't change anything. You made your choices, and now you get to live with the results. Elena left without another word, but I knew this wasn't over. She'd gotten what she came for, a recording of me saying Reed was about to learn something, which could be spun as a threat if necessary. That afternoon, Reed's lawyer called my lawyer. Apparently, Reed was concerned about escalating harassment and wanted to discuss appropriate boundaries for our interactions. Janet Morrison was amused. He wants you to sign an agreement promising not to go to any restaurants or public places where he might be present. Essentially, he wants you to avoid half the town so he can date your wife in peace. What did you tell him? I told him that my client has every right to exist in public spaces, and if Mr. Forsyth is uncomfortable with that, he's welcome to move to a different town. How did he take that? About as well as you'd expect. He's threatening to file for a restraining order based on the restaurant incident and some property damage he can't actually prove you caused. Let him try. I've got recordings of him threatening me, evidence of his harassment, and witnesses to everything I've actually done. That evening, I decided it was time to take this to the next level. Reed wanted to play legal games. Elena wanted to paint me as the unstable aggressor. Fine. Let's give them something to really worry about. I spent 2 hours compiling a comprehensive file on Reed Forsyth. His business practices, his financial situation, his history with other women. All public information, but organized and presented in a way that painted a very clear picture of who Reed really was. The file went to Elena's boss at the architecture firm, along with a note explaining that Elena was having an affair with a client, which violated the company's ethics policies. It went to Reed's business partners, his clients, and his ex-wife in California. I also sent copies to the local newspaper's business reporter, who'd been investigating construction industry corruption for months. By Wednesday, Reed's world was falling apart. His business partners were asking uncomfortable questions about his relationship with Elena and whether it had influenced their bidding on her firm's projects. His ex-wife was using the information in their ongoing custody dispute. The newspaper was preparing an exposé on his business practices. Elena's firm put her on administrative leave pending an investigation into her relationship with Reed and whether it constituted a conflict of interest. Reed's response was predictably aggressive. He showed up at my shop Thursday evening with 2 friends who looked like they'd been hired for their intimidation value rather than their conversation skills. I was ready for them. Trevor was working late, and Ms. Palmer happened to be walking her dog past the shop, both potential witnesses to whatever Reed had planned. "We need to talk," Reed announced, his 2 friends flanking him like bodyguards. "We're talking. What's on your mind?" "You know what's on my mind. The newspaper article, Elena's job, my business partners. This ends now." "Reed, I don't control the newspaper. I don't control Elena's employer. And I certainly don't control your business partners. If they are asking questions about your behavior, maybe you should examine that behavior. You sent them information. You're trying to destroy my life. I shared public information with interested parties. If that information reflects poorly on you, perhaps you should make better choices. One of Reed's friends stepped forward, clearly trying to look menacing. I didn't move, but I could see Trevor reaching for the tire iron on his workbench. This is harassment, Reed continued. Stalking. I'm going to have you arrested. For what? Sharing public information? Going to restaurants? Existing in the same town as you? Reed was getting more agitated, his face red with anger. You're obsessed with Elena. You can't let go. You're dangerous. Reed, the only dangerous person here is you. You're the one who showed up at my business with hired muscle. You're the one making threats. You're the one who thinks he can intimidate people into silence. I pulled out my phone and started recording. For the record, it's Thursday evening, and Reed Forsyth has just arrived at my business with 2 unidentified men to threaten me about sharing public information regarding his business practices and his affair with my wife. Turn that off. This is my property, Reed. I'll record whatever I want, and right now I want to document your threatening behavior for my lawyer. Reed looked like he was about to explode. His friends were clearly uncomfortable with being recorded, and Trevor was now standing behind me with a tire iron in his hand. This isn't over, Reed snarled. You're right. It's not. Because every time you threaten me, every time you try to intimidate me, every time you make the mistake of thinking I'm going to back down, I'm going to respond appropriately. And Reed, my responses are going to be a lot more creative than yours. They left, but not before Reed kicked over my trash can in a final display of impotent rage. I sent the recording to my lawyer within 5 minutes. Friday morning brought the newspaper article, a detailed investigation into Reed's business practices, his history of cost overruns, his safety violations, and his pattern of using personal relationships to secure contracts. Elena was mentioned prominently as his current girlfriend and professional collaborator, raising questions about conflicts of interest and ethical violations. By noon, Reed's construction company had lost 2 more major contracts. By evening, Elena had moved out of our house and into Reed's apartment. The war was escalating, and I was winning every battle, but I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Elena's social media had gone quiet. For someone who'd been documenting every meal, every outfit, every thought for the past 5 years, the sudden silence was deafening. Reed's accounts had been scrubbed clean of anything related to their relationship, and Elena's few remaining posts were carefully neutral. No more victim narratives, no more cryptic quotes about betrayal. They were regrouping, which meant they were planning something. I spent the weekend working on the Mustang and thinking through my next moves. Elena was smart enough to realize that her original strategy had backfired spectacularly. Reed was arrogant enough to believe he could still control this situation through intimidation or legal maneuvering. They were both wrong, but they were about to find out exactly how wrong. Monday morning brought a call from my lawyer with interesting news. Reed's attorney filed for a restraining order, Janet said. Emergency hearing tomorrow morning. They're claiming harassment, stalking, and threatening behavior. Based on what evidence? Elena's recording of your conversation at the shop, where you allegedly said Reed was about to learn something, Reed's testimony about the restaurant incident and his damaged car, and they're claiming you've been following them and interfering with Reed's business relationships. I laughed. They can't prove I damaged his car because I didn't. The restaurant incident was witnessed by 50 people who saw him trying to intimidate me. And sharing public information about someone's business practices isn't harassment, it's community service. I agree, but we need to be prepared. They're trying to paint you as an obsessed, dangerous ex-husband who won't let go. Then let's give them exactly what they're asking for. What do you mean? I mean it's time to set a trap, and Elena and Reed are going to walk right into it. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. I sent Elena a text message that evening, carefully worded to sound desperate and unhinged. I know you're with Reed, but we need to talk. I have evidence that could destroy both of you if it gets out. Meet me tomorrow night at 8 p.m. at Reed's apartment. Come alone, or everyone will know everything. Elena responded within minutes. Jack, you're scaring me. What evidence? What are you talking about? You know exactly what I'm talking about. The real timeline of your affair. The money transfers, the business deals, everything. None of it was true, of course. There were no money transfers, no secret business deals beyond what had already been exposed. But Elena's guilty conscience would fill in the blanks, make her imagine threats that didn't exist. Her response confirmed she'd taken the bait. I'll be there, but Jack, please don't do anything stupid. We can work this out. Tuesday's restraining order hearing was a masterpiece of legal theater. Reed's lawyer painted me as an obsessed stalker who couldn't accept that his marriage was over. Elena testified tearfully about feeling threatened and afraid, playing the victim role with Academy Award-worthy conviction. My lawyer's response was surgical. She presented the timeline of Elena's affair, Reed's threatening text messages, the recordings of Reed's confrontations at my shop, and witness testimony from Trevor and Ms. Palmer about Reed's intimidation tactics. The judge was clearly unimpressed with Reed's case. Mr. Forsyth, from what I can see, you've been engaging in a relationship with a married woman, sending threatening messages to her husband, and showing up at his business with what appear to be hired intimidators. The evidence suggests you're the aggressor in this situation. Reed's lawyer tried to redirect. Your Honor, Mr. Halstead has been systematically harassing my client, interfering with his business relationships and making threatening statements. What threatening statements? Sharing public information about someone's business practices is not harassment. Going to a restaurant where someone happens to be dining is not stalking. And from the recording I've heard, Mr. Halstead's statement about your client learning something appears to be a response to your client's threatening behavior. The restraining order was denied. Reed looked furious. Elena looked terrified, and I looked like the reasonable party who'd been defending himself against aggressive harassment. Perfect setup for the evening's main event. I arrived at Reed's apartment complex at 7:30, parking where I could see the entrance but remain relatively hidden. Trevor was positioned across the street with a camera, ready to document whatever happened. Ms. Palmer was walking her dog in the area, providing additional witness coverage. Elena arrived at exactly 8 p.m., looking nervous and checking her phone constantly. She was alone, as requested, but I could see Reed's silhouette in his apartment window. I waited until Elena was inside the building, then made my move. Reed's apartment was on the 3rd floor, and the building's security was laughable. A simple keycard system that I'd bypassed during my reconnaissance visit the previous week. I'd learned a lot about electronic systems during my years restoring classic cars and upgrading them with modern components. I positioned myself in the hallway outside Reed's apartment and started my phone's recording app. Then I knocked. Elena opened the door, looking surprised and frightened. Jack, how did you get up here? We need to talk, Elena. All 3 of us. Reed appeared behind her, his face flushed with anger. You're trespassing. Get out of my apartment. I'm in the hallway, Reed. Public space. But since you mention it, let's go inside where we can have some privacy. I pushed past them into the apartment, and they followed, clearly uncertain how to handle this situation. Elena was recording on her phone. Reed was texting someone, probably calling for backup or alerting the police. What evidence are you talking about? Elena demanded. What money transfers? I smiled, settling into Reed's expensive leather chair like I owned the place. Sit down, both of you. It's time we had an honest conversation. They remained standing, Elena clutching her phone, Reed positioning himself between me and the door like he was prepared to physically restrain me. You know, Elena, I've been thinking about our marriage. 8 years of partnership, and it all came down to one question. When did you decide I wasn't enough for you? Jack, this isn't... Was it when Reed first contacted you 4 months ago? Or was it earlier than that? Maybe you never really committed to our marriage at all. Reed stepped forward. You need to leave, now. Reed. I shook my head sadly. You really don't understand what's happening here, do you? You think you won. You think you got the girl, eliminated the competition, claimed your prize. But you have no idea what Elena is really like. Elena's face went pale. What are you talking about? I'm talking about your pattern, Elena. Reed isn't your first affair. He's just the first one I found out about. That was a lie, but Elena's reaction told me everything I needed to know. Her face went white, her hands started shaking, and she shot a guilty glance at Reed. That's not true, she whispered. Isn't it? What about Marcus from your office? The one you had drinks with every Thursday for 3 months last year? What about the weekend conference in Boston where you stayed an extra night for networking? More lies, but Elena was falling apart. Reed was staring at her, clearly seeing something in her expression that he didn't like. Elena, what is he talking about? Reed's voice was tight with suspicion. Nothing. He's lying, trying to break us up. Am I? Reed, let me ask you something. How many other married women have you been involved with? How many other husbands have you had to deal with? Reed's silence was telling. Because here's the thing, Reed. Elena doesn't leave relationships. She overlaps them. She finds her next target while she's still married to the current one. She's probably already scoping out your replacement. That's not true. Elena was crying now, but I could see Reed's doubt growing. Elena, show Reed your phone. Show him your text messages, your call history, your dating app activity. I don't have any dating apps. Don't you? Reed, when was the last time you actually looked at Elena's phone? Do you know her passwords, her social media accounts, her email? Reed was staring at Elena with growing suspicion. Elena, give me your phone. What? No. Reed, you're letting him manipulate you. This is exactly what he wants. If you have nothing to hide, show me the phone. Elena clutched her phone tighter. I don't have to prove anything to you. You should trust me. Like Jack should have trusted you? The apartment fell silent except for Elena's quiet sobbing. Reed was looking at her like he was seeing her clearly for the first time, and Elena was realizing that her perfect new relationship was crumbling in real time. I stood up slowly, pulling out my own phone. Reed, I'm going to send you something. Elena's location data for the past 6 months. Take a close look at the places she's been, the times she's been there, and ask yourself if all of those visits were really about work or shopping. Elena lunged for my phone, but Reed caught her arm. Let him send it. I sent the file, then watched Reed's face as he scrolled through the data. His expression went from suspicion to anger to disgust. Elena, what the hell is this? You've been to 3 different men's apartments in the past month. You've been to hotels I've never been to. You've been... Reed, I can explain. Explain what? That you've been cheating on me while we were cheating on your husband? Elena was sobbing now, her carefully constructed world falling apart. It's not what it looks like. Those were just friends, just what you told Jack about me? Reed threw Elena's phone across the room, where it shattered against the wall. Get out. Both of you. Get out of my apartment right now. Reed, please, get out! Elena fled, still crying. I followed more slowly, pausing at the door to look back at Reed. For what it's worth, Reed, you deserved better than this. We both did. I left him standing in his apartment, staring at the evidence of Elena's systematic betrayal of everyone who'd ever trusted her. The hallway security camera had captured Elena's emotional breakdown, Reed's angry confrontation, and my calm exit. Trevor had photographed Elena fleeing the building in tears, and Ms. Palmer had witnessed the shouting match that followed. By morning, everyone in town would know that Elena's perfect new relationship had imploded spectacularly. But I wasn't done yet. There was still one more move to make, one final piece of revenge that would ensure Elena and Reed never forgot the cost of their betrayal. And this time, there would be no coming back from it. Elena's car was parked outside our house when I drove by Wednesday morning. She'd apparently spent the night there after Reed threw her out, probably crying into the pillows that still smelled like the marriage she'd destroyed. My phone had been buzzing since dawn with messages from Victoria, Maya, and half our social circle. Word of the apartment confrontation had spread quickly, and everyone wanted to know what had really happened. I let them wonder. Reed's response was more direct. He called at 8 a.m., his voice tight with rage. What you did last night was unforgivable. What I did was tell the truth. How you handle that truth is up to you. You destroyed my relationship with lies and manipulation. Reed, I showed you Elena's location data. Public information from her own phone. If that destroyed your relationship, maybe your relationship was built on a foundation that couldn't handle reality. She's devastated. She's talking about hurting herself. That gave me pause. Elena was manipulative and selfish, but I'd never known her to be genuinely self-destructive. More likely, she was using suicide threats to generate sympathy and regain control of the narrative. Reed, if you're genuinely concerned about Elena's safety, call the police or a mental health professional. Don't call me. I'm not responsible for her emotional state anymore. You're a monster. I'm a man who got tired of being lied to. There's a difference. He hung up, but I knew this wasn't over. Elena was desperate, Reed was humiliated, and desperate people make unpredictable choices. I spent the morning at my shop, working on the Mustang and waiting for the next move in this chess game. Trevor was unusually quiet, occasionally glancing at me like he was trying to figure out whether I'd gone too far. Boss, can I ask you something? Shoot. Last night, when you showed Reed that location data, how long have you been tracking Elena's movements? I looked up from the engine I was rebuilding. Since I found out about the affair, I needed to know the scope of her betrayal. And what you found was worse than just Reed? Much worse. Elena's been systematically cheating for months, possibly years. Reed was just the most recent target. Trevor whistled low. So when you told him she was already looking for his replacement, I was telling the truth. Elena doesn't end relationships. She transitions between them. She's probably got 2 or 3 backup plans already in place. That's cold, boss, even for Elena. The afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. Victoria Chen arrived at my shop looking uncomfortable and determined. Jack, we need to talk. About what? About Elena. She called me this morning, crying, talking about how you've destroyed her life and she has nothing left to live for. I set down my wrench and gave Victoria my full attention. What exactly did she say? She said you've turned everyone against her, ruined her career, destroyed her relationship with Reed, and now she's completely alone. She's talking about ending it all. Victoria, Elena is many things, but she's not suicidal. She's manipulative, strategic, and desperate to regain control of this situation. Suicide threats are just another tool in her arsenal. What if you're wrong? What if she really is at the breaking point? I considered this carefully. Elena had lost her job, her relationship, her social circle, and her marriage. For someone who defined herself through external validation, that would be genuinely devastating. But Elena was also a survivor. She'd reinvent herself, find new targets, rebuild her life somewhere else. She was too narcissistic to actually harm herself. Victoria, if you're genuinely concerned, call the authorities. Have them do a wellness check. But don't expect me to rush over there and save her from the consequences of her own choices. She's asking to see you. She says she needs to apologize, to explain everything, to make things right. And you believe that? Victoria was quiet for a moment. I don't know what to believe anymore. Elena's been lying to everyone for months. But Jack, what if this is real? What if she really is desperate enough to hurt herself? I pulled out my phone and called the police non-emergency line. I'd like to request a wellness check on my estranged wife. She's made statements about harming herself, and I'm concerned for her safety. I gave them Elena's information and our address, then hung up. There. If Elena is genuinely suicidal, the professionals will handle it. If she's manipulating the situation, they'll see through it quickly enough. Victoria looked relieved. Thank you. I didn't know what to do. Victoria, Elena made her choices. She chose to have an affair. She chose to lie to everyone about it. She chose to try to control the narrative when she got caught. Now she's facing the consequences, and she's looking for someone to blame. Don't let her make you responsible for her problems. That evening, I got a call from the police officer who'd done the wellness check. Mr. Halstead, we checked on your wife as requested. She's upset about the divorce situation, but she's not in immediate danger. She did ask us to give you a message, though. What's that? She wants to meet with you tomorrow evening. Says she has important information about your divorce that you need to hear. She seemed pretty insistent. Another trap. Elena was trying to lure me into a private meeting where she could record me saying something threatening or abusive. Or maybe she was planning to claim I'd attacked her, giving her leverage in the divorce proceedings. Officer, did she say what this important information was? No, sir. Just that it was crucial for your divorce case and that you'd want to hear it. Thank you for the wellness check. If she contacts you again with suicide threats, please handle it as you see fit. But I won't be meeting with her privately. I hung up and immediately called my lawyer. Janet, Elena's trying to set up a private meeting, claims she has important information about our divorce. What do you think? I think it's a trap. Elena's lost everything. Her job, her boyfriend, her social circle. She's desperate to find some leverage, some way to regain control. A private meeting where she could claim you threatened or attacked her would be perfect. That's what I figured. So what's our next move? We wait. Elena's going to make a mistake soon. Desperate people always do. And when she does, we'll be ready. Thursday morning brought Elena's final gambit. She posted a long, emotional statement on social media detailing her abusive marriage and her fear for her safety. She claimed I'd been controlling and manipulative throughout our relationship, that I'd isolated her from friends and family, and that I was now stalking and threatening her. It was a masterpiece of manipulation, carefully crafted to generate maximum sympathy while painting me as the villain. She included screenshots of my text messages, edited to remove context and make them seem threatening. She shared photos of herself looking frightened and vulnerable. The post went viral within hours. My phone exploded with messages from people who'd believed Elena's version of events. Old friends expressing concern and disappointment. Mutual acquaintances asking if the allegations were true. Even some of my customers questioning whether they wanted to do business with an alleged abuser. Elena had played her final card, and it was a good one. But she'd made one crucial mistake. In her desperation to paint herself as the victim, she'd included details that contradicted her earlier statements, dates that didn't match her previous timeline, claims about my behavior that were directly contradicted by her own social media posts from the same time periods. Most importantly, she'd posted screenshots of text conversations that included metadata, timestamps, location data, and technical information that proved she'd been at Reed's apartment when she claimed to be afraid for her safety at home. I spent Thursday afternoon compiling Elena's contradictions into a comprehensive response. Screenshots of her own posts that contradicted her abuse claims, witness statements from Trevor, Victoria, and Ms. Palmer. The police report from her wellness check showing she'd been evaluated and found to be manipulating the situation. Most damaging of all, I had Reed's recorded statements about Elena's other affairs, proving that she'd been systematically lying to everyone about everything. I posted my response Friday morning with a simple caption, "The truth speaks for itself." The reaction was swift and brutal. Elena's remaining supporters began questioning her story. People started sharing their own experiences with Elena's manipulation and lies. Reed even posted his own statement, confirming that Elena had been cheating on both of us simultaneously. By afternoon, Elena's victimization narrative had completely collapsed. She was being called out publicly by dozens of people who'd been manipulated by her over the years. Her few remaining friends were distancing themselves, and her family was reportedly furious about being dragged into her public drama. Elena's final social media post was a brief statement. "I'm leaving town to start over somewhere else. I hope everyone can find it in their hearts to forgive me." Saturday morning, I drove past our house one last time. Elena's car was gone, the windows were dark, and there was a "for sale" sign on the lawn. Reed's apartment complex was similarly empty. His Tesla was gone, and the building manager told me he'd broken his lease and moved out overnight. They'd both fled town, separately and in disgrace, leaving behind the wreckage of their reputations and the consequences of their choices. I spent the weekend finishing the Mustang restoration. The engine purred like a contented cat. The paint gleamed in the afternoon sun, and every component was exactly as it should be. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be destroyed by people who never deserved you in the first place. Elena got her fresh start in a new town, probably already working on her next victim. Reed got his freedom from a woman who would have eventually betrayed him just as thoroughly as she'd betrayed me, and I got my life back, clean, honest, and entirely my own. The reservation was canceled, the marriage was over, and for the first time in years, I was exactly where I belonged.